Don't leave it running. You watch the ready.
You guys ready?
Yeah.
All right, let's do some stuff.
Good.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're pleased that you all join us to recognize Major Barry White on the occasion of his promotion to Lieutenant Colonel. We are pleased to welcome Barry's wife, Jasmine, and his parents, Kermit and Jackie White, his children, Alex and Layla, his friend, Chris. Colonel Vincent Libby, Director of the 618th Air Operations Area Command Directorate, will be officiating today's ceremony. Please rise for the entrance to the official party and remain standing for the pledge of the national anthem. Ladies and gentlemen, Colonel Libby.
Okay. So before I get started, when I was talking to Barry about what he wanted to do today, he said, "Yeah, I just want to keep it casual. I don't want to do all the pomp and circumstance. I want to just like make it a small thing." I said, "Okay." So we wear like battle dress and flight suits and stuff. He goes, "No, I want to wear that." And I think it's because he just wants to be up here on stage with an Air Force guy. Because you like, did a bunch of combat stuff, and I look like I fly for Delta. He's just trying to show me up. But it worked. Yeah. So, touche. All right. So welcome everyone. Thank you for coming. Today is a celebration of Major White's promotion to Lieutenant Colonel. This is indeed a great achievement, and it needs to be celebrated. But we need to get one thing straight from the get-go. Barry, today might be about you, but it's really for them, right? And of course, I'm talking about the entire White family here in the front row. This celebration is for you, because Barry wouldn't be up here today if it wasn't for all of the love and support you've given him over the years. With that in mind, I'd like to thank Barry's parents, Kermit and Jackie, for making it here today. I'm glad you made it. Barry tried to get them to drive straight through a snowstorm. Barry, they made it. I'd also like to thank Barry's children, Alex and Layla, for being here. And last, but certainly not least, I'd like to thank Jasmine for being here. Alright, so we've established that today's about Barry, but for the front row. But let's narrow this down just a little bit more. Jasmine, you are my main customer today. If you aren't completely satisfied with my performance, I'll give you a full refund, and we'll find some Army guy to do it again next week. Is that a deal? Okay, alright, so you let me know afterwards. Barry used a coupon to get me here, so. Alright, so to the White family, your presence here today, it's important. I appreciate the example you set for Barry and your continued support of his service to our nation. Thank you. Having just gotten Scott last summer, I've only known Barry for about 5 months, but I can tell you this, Barry is an impressive officer. Yeah, keep talking. That was my first impression of him, and ever since that day, it's only been solidified as a fact in my mind. And in such a short time, I've seen him grow and develop as a leader of character. Barry's a quiet guy. And I don't know if that's just because he's not used to talking with his hands and making airplane noises like we do, or if that's his true nature. His parents tell me that's his true nature. So that's good. He's not just an Army fish in Air Force water. But he's also an exceptional officer. And it is my privilege to host, perhaps roast a little, and promote him today. So Barry, I want to take this opportunity to express my gratitude for giving me the opportunity to be a part of your special day. Thank you. Now, I promised Barry that I would keep this brief, but for everyone who knows me, you know that's not really an option, but it's all in honor of him and his family and their service to this nation, but I'll try. I'll try to keep brief. It's page 1 of 20. All right, so in a moment I'll discuss Barry's career a bit, but before I do, I want to take a minute to talk about the rich history of the Lieutenant Colonel rank and insignia. Colonels and Lieutenant Colonels trace their origins to the 16th century. In 1505, King Ferdinand of Spain reorganized part of his army into columns, consisting of 1,000 soldiers each of them led by a colonel. In the French and British armies, who adopted this practice, the colonels who led these columns were noblemen, and they were often preoccupied with other interests during peacetime or in between battles. As a result, their assistants, their lieutenants, took over when they were away. These colonels' lieutenants, or lieutenants to the colonel, soon became known as lieutenant colonels. Yeah, we can clap whenever you guys want to clap. So while working as the colonel's assistant, they were being groomed to take command of their own units. Today, lieutenant colonels command their own squadrons and battalions and work on staffs to gain experience, learning and preparing to assume the role of colonel and command at levels of increased responsibility. Additionally, as Barry promotes to lieutenant colonel today, he will pin on 2 silver oak leaves. The history of this rank insignia dates back to the Continental Army. Originally, in 1775, all field grade officers were identified by either a red or pink cockade, which is a knot of ribbons that they would put in their hats as a symbol of their office. So we could be putting some pink feathers in Barry if that was still in practice today, but we will forego that. In 1835, regulations included the oak leaf, worn on shoulder straps to designate majors and lieutenant colonels. Originally, most branches had gold braids around the board, while the infantry epaulets had a silver board. In 1851, the Army finally went with gold braids around all epaulets, and all majors wore gold oak leaves, and all lieutenant colonels wore silver. Eventually, as the Army progressed, they designated different color epaulets for each branch. I learned a lot researching for this, and I didn't know any of these. For example, the infantry wears light blue. The Signal Corps is orange, and Special Forces wear green. The maroon color that Barry is wearing signifies the Logistics Corps. So, here's a fun fact. Throughout history, there have been several slang terms for Lieutenant Colonel. Light Colonel, you've all heard that. How about Short Colonel? Light Bird, Half Colonel, or my favorite, Bottle Cap Colonel. So now you can be Bottle Cap Barry. That's the thing, I just made it, and I'm in charge, so Bottle Cap Barry. So that's a brief history of the Lieutenant Colonel rank and insignia. A proud history that Barry very much deserves to become part of today as he prepares to assume increased responsibility and leadership in our armed forces. So, I need to put into context just how big of a deal this is. Your son, your husband, your dad. This is a very, very big deal. He's about to put on a rank that many have worked for, but very few have achieved. By this point in their career, Army officers have performed to a high standard in difficult staff officer positions at the battalion and brigade echelons. And so, the rank of lieutenant colonel is special in that it really begins to identify those officers who have the potential to lead large organizations at the field grade level. The Army is highly selective in choosing officers to serve at the rank of lieutenant colonel. I'd like to take a moment to share some numbers with you to illustrate this point. So, out of the entire Army of over 485,000 soldiers, only 2.7% of them wear the rank of lieutenant colonel or higher. Okay, now this is some fun math, so we'll do another one. Out of the 485,000 soldiers in the Army, only 0.84%, less than 1%, will outrank Barry after today. Let that sink in a minute, Barry. This is a big deal. The year Barry was selected for lieutenant colonel, the Army only promoted 60% of the logistics majors. But it should be noted, this is 60% of only those who stayed in the Army since 2005, when Barry entered, and were previously good enough to be promoted to the ranks of lieutenant, captain, and major. So to better illustrate, if you took a group of 100 logistics officers the year Barry entered the Army in 2005, only about 20% of them would still be in the Army today. So now we're down to a pool of only 20 officers out of that 100. Of those 20, 60% were promoted to lieutenant colonel. So now we're talking about 12 officers out of that 100. So as I said earlier, the Army is highly selective in choosing officers to become lieutenant colonel. Today, the nation is promoting Barry based on his potential. But what's the greatest indicator of potential? Past performance, which I'll briefly discuss. Now, side note, as an Air Force colonel, promoting an Army major to lieutenant colonel, this was by far the hardest part of preparing for today. I didn't understand a single word of your performance reports. The acronyms were crazy, and now I know how my wife feels. When I come home, tell her about my day, feed her a bowl of Air Force acronym soup, and she doesn't want to eat it. So I had to phone some friends, talk to some of my buddies who are in the Army, and help them decipher the code. And it was still hard. So as I go through Barry's career, you'll notice a couple things stand out. He's done some really impressive jobs, and he's done them really well. He's mastered his craft in the United States and abroad, and he's what I call a plug-and-play officer with agility to perform at any echelon, strategic, operational, and tactical. Barry graduated from Virginia Tech in 2005, and now I'm not going to go in chronological order through his entire career because I don't want to bury the lead for all my Air Force friends in the room. The truth is, Barry's a combat-hardened, steely-eyed badass with 3 combat tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. Now, we deployed in the Air Force too. I myself have deployed 7 times, but they were all between 60 and 120 days. Barry deployed to Iraq for 15 months. And then a short 18 months later, he deployed again to Iraq for another 12 months. Then a few years later, he deployed to Afghanistan for 9 months. I think the only way you could deploy that much in the Air Force would be to separate from the Air Force and join the Army. That was unbelievable when I read all that. At the tactical level, Barry excelled as an airborne paratrooper in the 82nd Airborne Division at Fort Bragg. How many jumps do you have, Barry? 18. I have 5. So some might say I'm a third of the man you are. I wouldn't say that, but some might say that. You know? That's remarkable. When the 82nd Airborne deployed to Iraq, he served as an advisor and company commander. At the tactical level, he also advised the Afghan National Army in the Kunduz and Helmand provinces. As the lead logistics advisor for the Special Operations Task Force Afghanistan. At the operational level, He supported essential functions as part of the Combined Security Transition Command by managing the acquisition of $150 million of equipment for the Afghan Army. And at the strategic level, he managed seaport ops in Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Oman, the UAE, and Pakistan, supervising contracts in excess of $380 million. Barry has excelled at all levels of leadership too, as a platoon leader, a maintenance control officer, an executive officer, and a company commander. While assigned to Fort Eustis, Virginia, Barry crushed it as an operations officer in the Transportation Battalion S3, who was responsible for training every aspect of a battalion's operations. I had to Google what the S3 does. Don't tell anyone, all right? Just between us and whoever's recording this. So remember his third combat deployment to Afghanistan? Well, 7 months after he got home, Barry went to Bahrain for 2 years and followed that up with a year in Korea. I had to call Barry and ask him if they were accompanying tours. And he assured me that Jasmine was with him in Bahrain and Korea, because that was a huge relief for me, because I thought I was going to have to introduce you to Barry at the ceremony. I did the math on all the deployments of Bahrain and Korea, and I was getting super worried. So I'm glad you were there. In Bahrain, as a battalion XO, Barry managed a multinational staff of employees from India, Philippines, Sri Lanka, and Ethiopia. Jasmine, your husband, he's a smart dude. Whether you think so or not at home, I don't know. He's a graduate of the Army Command and General Staff College. He has a master's degree in strategic leadership. Did you all know that Barry's published? He has a published article on multimodal operations in the UAE. Sounds like a real page turner. I was going to read it as preparation for this, but I just couldn't. Alex and Layla, your dad, he's a very brave guy. Like I said earlier, he jumped out of a perfectly good airplane 18 times. Who does that? Ladies and gentlemen, Barry has a Bronze Star and was also presented with the Army Combat Action Badge for actively engaging or being engaged by the enemy. That just sounds cool. And thanks to his time here, Barry can now speak Air Force. You got to work on your airplane hands. Over 900 civilians, active duty, guard, and reserve airmen work in TACC, and one soldier. He's literally an army of one. Do you guys remember that commercial? My wife didn't know what it meant, and I was like, oh, I think it's good. All right, so Mr. and Mrs. White, your son, he's an indispensable member of our team. Barry is the Air Refueling Short Notice Branch Chief, where he plans and executes global air refueling missions for us. When the President of the United States leaves the White House, Barry ensures the fighters protecting him with armed overwatch have tankers. When U.S. Strategic Command wants to send a message to China, Iran, or North Korea, or anyone else, they count on Barry to fuel the bombers that often fly round trip from the United States to those foreign coasts and back. And when Russia threatens the homeland and our way of life, Barry ensures that F-22s have gas in the sky off the coast of Alaska. All of that is done by your son. And these aren't just things I say because his family's here. Barry was our 2020 Field Grade Officer of the Year in ARD. Like I said, he's an indispensable member of our team, and we're very lucky to have him. To the members of ARD, your teammate, he's not just a great officer, he's a great human too. He's humble, he's kind, he's volunteered for the Guide Right program, Adopt a Highway, and the Special Olympics. He's an active member of his church and volunteers for the local Boys to Men Club. And when you take all of this into consideration, Barry is exactly the kind of guy that we need to be Lieutenant Colonel in the Army. Yeah. So we've covered a lot here today, I know, but I want to leave you all with one final thought. People often refer to the Army or the Air Force as if it's a living entity. The Army did this, or the Air Force did that. But the truth is, the Army has never done anything. People did. You did. Many of you in this room and thousands of other great Americans have done some amazing things on behalf of our nation. And our armed forces would be nothing without the people who raised their right hand, put on the uniform, and took an oath to protect this flag. And here's a secret that only military families know. The Army would also be nothing without amazing families like this one sitting right here in the front row. Because we all know, all too well, that Barry's service has been a burden for you to bear too. A soldier doesn't serve alone. The entire family does. So with this in mind, after the promotion order is read in a few seconds, I would like to invite Jasmine, Alex, Layla, Jackie, and Kermit, who's a retired Army sergeant, by the way, to join us on stage. It's only fitting that the family has the honor to help Barry put up this new rank on, because this is an achievement that you have all earned. Ready to do this?
Ready?
All right. Are you guys ready? We're going to do some magic here. Okay? Publish the order. Attention to order.
I took some time to write something, and if I forget anything, I'm gonna circle back. So I don't forget. But again, thanks. One thing I love to say with Jesus Christ, for bringing us together, especially in this pandemic. It's just a rough time for everybody, so I truly appreciate everybody's time. Colonel Libby, thanks for appreciating. I don't know how I'm going to follow that up. But those are some times where it's not every day that an Air Force guy says good thing about an Army guy. But I truly appreciate it. And since you change the culture and your leadership values, it's great. So I appreciate it. To my Air Force LTC family that's here, my last assignment, I was in Korea, and I truly did not enjoy the time experience, right? And if you talk to me for 15 minutes, especially when I first got here, you would know that. And so, it was rough coming into a new organization, but, you guys welcomed me with open arms. From the leadership, Colonel Hanma, Colonel McAllister, Mr. Phillips, Colonel Rowe, Colonel Alberico, and, especially Colonel Patrick. They accepted me and they believed in me and gave me the opportunity. So I'll forever be grateful for that. And to the team, Dan, Slim is over there, got John, Max, Sandy, Nick. It's always weird. It's a little weird coming to a new organization. And everybody goes by first names, right? So it took me about a year and a half to start calling people by the first name. But it made it more family oriented, and it made it easy. So thanks, Dan, Slim. I appreciate it. And to my battle buddy over here, Mr. Carey, Mike Carey, Chili, or as my kids would say, Mike Carnage. I truly appreciate it. I call you and ask you questions all the time, and you've been like a big brother to me since I've been here. So forever I'll be, in debt with you for my time here. This guy. To my parents, not only did you give me life, but you risked your life to come here and, that was a rough snowstorm, and like I said, I was like, push through. That's the Army in me, But you guys made the right decision when you came here early this morning, and I wouldn't be here without you, and I truly appreciate you guys. First, I just want to mention my mom. She's always been my biggest fan and my biggest supporter. I can sit up here and say anything, but it's truly nothing I can say that can bring justice for what you've done for me and what you did to me. Anytime I needed a friend, you were always there. Through sickness and health, you were always by my side. So, totally appreciation. It's small, but just want to let you know I love you and thanks.
She said she wished she had 10 of you. She did.
To my father, thank you for being a great example and establishing a foundation. We'd be small town folks, and a lot of times not easy to make out of a small town. But he joined the Army, took a different route, and he became a great, successful man. And the only thing I can remember as a kid is dressing up in his uniform, with my little helmet on, running around like a little green Army dude. And so, just wanted to be in the Army or in the NFL, and you see which road that is. But I've always wanted to be like you, and there's no other man that I know that's as giving as caring as you are. So, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being a great dad.
Dad said only 2.
My brother from another mother, Chris, right? Thank you for coming out. One of the things I always say about the military and all these deployments I've done, the hardest thing to do is to maintain a relationship. And we started about 20 years ago almost now as bouncers, at Virginia Tech. I used to be a bouncer back in the day. But, through 16 plus years in the military and 6 plus years overseas, I can truly say that our friendship has been stronger as it has been. To my beautiful, beautiful kids, since I was in grade school, the only thing I ever wanted to do was be a dad, right? I used to tell my mom, I'm gonna raise me a little basketball team, like 5, 6 of them. But with the military and how things, went, I started a little bit later in life, right? I was always deployed. But it was worth the wait. Alex is so talented, and at the age of 7, he's conquered so many things and done so many things that I can only imagine it. And I'm 40 now, big 4-0, and it's something as small as being a great swimmer, playing the piano, always things I've always wanted to do. You've done it already, and I'm just so proud of you. To Layla, her personality is just so infectious. Whenever I'm having a down day, she'll always meet me at the door and just give me so much love. And sometimes that's, whatever you are, that's all you need is love, right? She's just funny and sweet, and like I said, she can simply change the mood of anyone. And I'm so excited and yet terrified to watch you grow up.
Yes,
but,
yes.
I don't tell you guys as much as your mom does, or as much as I should. But I love you guys more than the fat kid loves cake. And if you ever need anything from me, I'm there. And the only thing I really want is for you guys to continue to have. To my wife, I'm sorry, I forgot something.
They're not going to hear the rest of this.
Sit on the floor for now.
And to my wife, the light of my life, my partner on this journey. I didn't know what living truly was until I met her. You know, my only, she has a huge heart and a beautiful heart. And my only regret to this point in life is not meeting someone. It's funny because it's almost like, well, you've been with me throughout my entire 2 or 3 years. I was super stressed out when I was 42, worrying about getting promoted to manager. I was one of those guys. I'm laid back. I'm super laid back. Right? This is probably the most of y'all heard me talk. But I'm just super laid back. That's not always good to be, especially in the military as a leader, right? Because they take quietness and being laid back as a weakness. That is not true. It's just, I'm just more observant, and I interject when I need to. And so it can go back to days when we were in Fort Eustis, wanting to get promoted to major, just working hard and grinding and taking the hard assignments just to make it, be more competitive. And, even when it comes to public speaking and briefing, we would sit in the house and practice PowerPoint presentations. She would always give me critiques, and she had made me so much a better person than I was before I met her. I would not be here today without her. And again, I know sometimes it just seems like we're by ourselves, but anytime, any place, it's us until the wheels fall off. That's just the way love goes, right? and my love will never be but that's really all I have. And if I didn't mention you by name, please don't. Oh, sorry. My bad. Again, I'm not used to talking. I get to talking and I get thrown off a little bit, right? But here you go, sweetheart.
Oh, thank you.
Now go, Daddy. Oh, thank you for this. Daddy, thank you for these.
Thank you for these.
I'm so glad you guys are here.
And again, like I was saying, if I had to mention you by name, I apologize. It's my mind, not my heart. I know, Robert and Cindy, you guys have probably been in all my major functions as well. And you have my parents survived the blizzard that you guys drove through, so I appreciate you. My cousin, he's probably, he's there live streaming right now. I love you, cuz. I appreciate you. He's retired Army as well. And my sister, she wasn't able to make a baby. All those folks that I mentioned had a great impact. I appreciate you guys, and I love you all. And God bless you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the ceremony. Please come to the front and offer your congratulations and room for some refreshments after. Thank you.
I appreciate it, sir.
Lieutenant Colonel White came into the ranch a couple years ago, and we're just really honored to have him. And we just wanted to say, he's been there for the late nights. He's been there for all the weekend shifts that the planners that work for him come in to take care of the mission. He's always had our back, and I know he always will. Just a little token of our appreciation.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.